Hello, hello, hello. What's going on, YouTube? Um, Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Therapy. Um, Still trying to find a vibe and all that good stuff. So I could possibly be coming to you from anywhere. Um, when it comes to this work, I'm like the mad scientist. So as you can see, my workspace behind me may look a little disorganized to you, but it's what works for me, and helps me to be able to get everything that I need done. Before we go into this big grand finale of ending up our discussion of using Winnie the Pooh characters and how they have symptoms of mental health disorders, and we're looking at Christopher Robbin tonight. Want to talk a little bit about my shirt, and because I still can't quite figure out how to do this shoe thing and stuff, y'all, I'm telling y'all, some weeks and months from now, I'm gonna be so on top of this thing. But these are my shoes of choice today. New Balance 725 something, I don't know. Again, not only do I have a Coach plug, I have a shoe plug, and so we're rocking little Coach multicolored fanny pack. And so a lot of these things are things that I have from Coach. They have seasonal promotions and seasonal times when certain things are out. And usually if you don't catch it within that season, you won't catch it. So, if anybody is a Coach connoisseur or you're aspiring to become a Coach connoisseur, get with me so I can help you stay on top of that stuff the way I attempt to stay on top of it. And so today's shirt was a creation that I actually came up with, sitting around and was sitting and looking at little things, and I saw a saying. And so anytime I see something, I try to create it in my own little way. And it says, I'm in my let them be area. So if, let them judge you, you can let them misunderstand you, you can let them find better than you, you can let them gossip about you, you can let them lose you. And then the very last one just says let them. So them is anybody that's getting in your way, anybody that you feel like is trying to stop or hinder you from being the best version of who you are, anybody that you've kind of been struggling with being yourself with these people, or being who you are. And sometimes we allow circumstances and things to change us. And so once we start finding ourselves and putting those pieces back together, you got to let whoever's going to have a problem with it have a problem with it. You got to let whoever is not going to be, team you for you bettering yourself. You got to let those folks go. And it could be family, friend, co-worker, foe, whomever, whatever. You just got to be in a space to let it go so that you can find yourself. And, like I said, you build your support network, you get those people that are going to ride that wave with you no matter what. Because always bear in mind, just because we do things a certain way, or we would do things for people that they aren't reciprocating, it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means we have to learn to accept that, or we have to learn to let them be, and whatever that means to you, and however that works for you. And when you get in your let them be area, I have a little hashtag or a little saying that I will say, in my element. So you'll see a shirt then. It's been a long time since I've been in my element. So I'm trying to discover what my element is for me. And I just remember when I used to be in my element, it didn't matter what whoever thought, whatever, as long as I wasn't doing anything to hurt you, as long as I wasn't doing anything disrespectful, as long as I wasn't acting, out of space when it came to whatever my relationship was with you, then when I get in my element, I need to stay there so that, I can process that and I can be okay. And I want you all to develop your element too. And it doesn't have to be received in a negative way. You know, everybody needs just some space, some time to reconnect, some time to, you know, kind of detach, some time to replenish and put those pieces of the puzzle back together. And if you are expecting somebody to do that for you, I'm here to tell you, that's nobody's responsibility. It's all yours. That's your job. You have to know what it takes to put your pieces back together again. And if you allow people to constantly break them and do those things, you're going to constantly run into the same stuff that you've been running into and dealing with. Okay. So now we are looking at my buddy, good old Christopher Robbin. And he is the only live person or human being, I might as well say, in the pool, cartoon pool, along with his parents, of course. And there's several different studies of how Winnie the Pooh was created, because it's the internet. So I want to put that plug out there too. Don't believe everything that you Google and pull, because I can put some content out there and it not be the original content. I'm coming to you from my understanding of some of the content that I've read, but some people can put out there, this is the origin of Winnie the Pooh, and it be completely off kilter for what was going on. And so the creator, supposedly, of Winnie the Pooh had a child who suffered from mental health illness. And in order to try to deal with it, supposedly now, this creator and his wife bought this child these stuffed animals, hence Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, Tigger, Rabbit, Owl, Piglet, Kangaroo, so that this child could have friends to play with, because the child was so misunderstood in school because of the mental illness back then. And we know how you know, well, some of us know how mental health was back in the day. There were not the modalities and the treatments and the different ways of having conversations to help people find themselves like they were back then. A lot of mental health institutions had people locked down. The conditions were horrible. People were given shock treatment, all kinds of stuff, simply because we just didn't understand what they were going through. And we didn't know how to have, you know, these conversations with these people. And so Christopher Robbin, because he had a mental health diagnosis that was misunderstood and they didn't know what was going on, he gave all of these characters their personalities. And there's a mental health disorder, personality disorder, and it falls under the category of schizophrenia. And some of you may be familiar with that, and some of you may not. And so I'm going to give you the definition as it applies supposedly to Christopher Robbin. We're going to jump into that DSM-5, and then we're going to talk about some characteristics of schizophrenia. And it says, perhaps the most surprising disorder sufferer of all is Christopher Robbin. That is until you realize all his friends are actually stuffed toys. It is likely that by creating these characters in his head, they are representing his feelings that he actually experiences. And so an individual with schizophrenia has some very, very unique symptoms of this mental health disorder. And according to DSM-5, some essential features of schizophrenia can be a disturbance that involves at least one of the following psychotic symptoms: delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, frequent derailment of the conversation, they're incoherent, grossly abnormal psychomotor behavior. They're talking real loud, they're spitting, they're all in your face, they can't control what they have going on. They want to be heard when they're talking about this stuff that doesn't make any sense. Now, it doesn't make any sense to you because you can't follow the storyline, but in their mind, it makes perfect sense to them, whatever it is that they're trying to say. There's a bizarre content of thought, persecution, you know, they make allegations. There's perception disturbance, loss of sense of self. They have an inadequate interest, drive, or ability to follow through the course of action of anything that's logical. Relationship withdrawal. So they tend to shy away from the people that love them the most. They tend to, lie on, steal from, curse out, people who try to help them the most. They dress bizarre. Their grooming habits become, obsolete, or they just don't groom, bathe, wash, change their clothes at all. There's extreme agitation, including a high degree of irritability, anger, unpredictability, or impulsive physical acting out. And this particular mental health diagnosis is one that is near and dear to my heart because I actually had a family member that was diagnosed with schizophrenia and exhibited a lot of these behaviors. And anyone that knows me on a personal level will know who I'm talking about. And for years, we watched one of my uncles, we watched him go from normal to schizophrenic, manic, to experiencing everything that I just read, to you. And as a family, we band together and we did everything that we could possibly do to try to help him. And unfortunately, he passed away. So some other circumstances, it didn't necessarily have anything to do with his mental health diagnosis. But at the end of the day, he truly, really never meant anybody any harm. Those were things that were uncontrollable. And without medication, without proper treatment, without having proper conversations, all of those symptoms can go from mild to moderate to severe to off the charts at times. And so, it was really heartbreaking, some of the things that we went through, but it was reality. And it was one of the reasons that I wanted to go back to school and further my study and get into this field so that I can understand, more, first of all, and then be able to just help somebody, because we were very blessed and fortunate to have a village. The town that we lived in, there were so many people, too many for me to name, but if any of you watch this or if anybody share this, this content, I am very, very grateful to the village that surrounded me and my family while we were dealing with my uncle that suffered from this. But getting back to Winnie the Pooh, we know that Christopher Robin is a child from the storyline, and in his mind, these characters are real, just like someone with schizophrenia. And if anybody was to try to tell Christopher Robin that Winnie the Pooh was not an actual live bear walking, talking, and having life experiences, that would upset him. It would agitate him. It would take him to, a different place. And all of the mental health diagnoses that we've covered so far this week come to life in schizophrenia, because it's a personality disorder. And so sometimes you never know who you're going to get. Bipolar is one similar that we haven't touched on, but we are going to talk about bipolar on the channel and going through that. But it's just a really, really, really hard mental health disorder to watch someone go through and then try to be there for the someone that's going through it. And so, we talked just a little bit about those things. And like I said, we're going to get into all of these more in depth. But Christopher Robin, so when you think about a child, one of the first games we learn to play as children is make-believe or pretend. We pretend that we're teachers, and I jumped to that because when I was growing up, I was a teacher, and I was the oldest, so everybody had to listen and everybody had to play school. And I wanted to be a teacher because my oldest uncle was a teacher and a principal. And, these were the examples in my life. I didn't necessarily want to be like anybody that I saw on TV. I wanted to be like my mom, my aunts, my uncles. I have two aunts that were educators or still are. They've retired. All three of the ones I'm talking about, they've retired and they're still dealing with school systems or daycares in some form or capacity because it was a passion for them. And so I wanted that, so I thought, as a child. And then I actually went and became a teacher for 2 years. But I quickly saw 2 years into that game, that wasn't for me. But I enjoyed it and I learned a lot during that time. But as a child, I looked up to my family members and I looked up to some of the teachers that were a part of my village that showed me or, taught me different ways of life, taught me that even though we grew up living in the projects, you can go to college, and you can do something different. And I was talking to one of my cousins last week and we both were like, you know what, growing up, we didn't even know that we lived in the projects. We didn't even know that we were considered low income because that's how good our moms made our childhood. So, once again, shout out to my mom. She's a real MVP in my life. But at any rate, we were taught to play, make believe. There was a time where I loved Bob Barker. Growing up, being around, my grandma all the time, looking at The Price is Right. And I used to want to be a Bob's Beauty girl when I was little. And my hair wasn't long, so I would go get a towel and tie it around. And I would pretend to show the things, so we play make believe. And I could go on and on about the things that, a child's imagination, just the make believe and the pretend. And if we aren't careful with teaching our children that make believe is just a game, some people will end up growing up pretending their entire lives, pretending to be something or someone that they're not, pretending to present themselves in a light and in an era that they're not. And that's not healthy at all, because it's okay to be who you are. And if you be who you are, whether you have 8 friends like Christopher Robbin created in his mind, or 2 really good solid friends that are real with you, that are there for you, that's on that boat, and they don't care what you do, what you've done, they're gonna hold you down the best way that they know how. Even if you hurt them, they're not gonna leave you, and realistically, we aren't taught that. We're taught when people hurt us, that's it. I ain't got nothing more for you. Or we're taught that, if somebody did something to us, we can do whatever we want, but they can't do anything to us. And that's a selfish nature that we have to grow out of. And I think, until we recognize it or start seeing it in ourselves, it's hard for us to do that. And so Christopher Robin refused to believe that these stuffed animals weren't real because he didn't have any social contact outside of these stuffed animals because of, if that theory is true now, because of a mental health disorder. And if we're all being realistic and we're doing real talk, there were some people in the town that probably hated to see my uncle coming, especially when he was dealing with, if he's in a manic episode. We didn't halfway want to deal with it when he was in a manic episode, especially when we didn't understand it. And so, when we got to a place of knowing at the end of the day, love is an action word. And oh God, love is so bigger than any mistake you've ever made. Love is bigger than any lie you ever told. Love is bigger than any hurt, you've ever bestowed. Love is just so big, and that's where that forgiveness comes in. And we all can forgive to a point, if we're being real with ourselves. But, in reality, what we think we deserve or what we expect and what we want is not always what we get. And sometimes what we think, we're not getting or what we think is not happening for us, we tend to behave and perform and act a certain way. And it's all in your mind. That's what mental health is about. It's all a thought process, man. So you got to sit down and plan this stuff out, just with whatever it is that you want to do. We all get stuck, stuck today, had a moment, stuck, wasn't sure what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. I had a lot of stuff to get done. I was able to get a big bulk of it done. I know what my day, is going to look like and all of that good stuff. So I'm getting back on track of getting organized, but getting organized in my own way. My organization doesn't have to look like your organization or anybody else's organization. If it's organized for you, then it's organized, point blank, period. And that's it. We don't have to live outside of who we are or come outside of the realms of who we are to begin to fall back into that role of people pleasing. Because remember, we said you're only one person, so you can't please everybody. And you have the right to feel how you feel. You just have to be able to accept that if you feel how you feel, people have the way to, have the right to feel how they feel too. So, excuse me 1 second. Get a little water, because y'all know I be on here and acid reflux and everything else, and I be like, pardon, so let me drink a little water. Hold on. Oh, okay. So, you just get into those places of, a lot of people will say, that's just me, and that's how I am. Well, be who you are and be how you are. But when you find yourself without anybody wanting to be around you because that's just you, then maybe you will start adjusting and making some changes. Or maybe you'll be okay with that. All of that is fine. But what we tend to shy away from is when people are in manic states of their mental health, we tend to say, I don't want to be around them. I don't want to be bothered. I ain't got time for that. But that's what, we were created for. That's what the village is for. We're here to help one another. We're here to, bridge the gap, educate, do all those different things with one another. And it starts in early childhood. It starts in the making and moldings of a kid doing whatever stage of development Christopher Robbin was in. You watch kids today, I hear people call them pandemic babies, or, we all from different eras, baby boomers, Gen Z, whatever, millennials. They give this title to you depending on the era you were born in, and they give you certain characteristics, but they're not always true to who you are and how you respond. And so with Christopher Robbin, it could have not been a mental health disorder. It could have truly just been a kid with a big imagination. Who knows? But it's so easy to stop and think and look at things when we're dealing with our mental, to just kind of see who and what we can relate to. And I just thought it was fun when I learned that. And I thought it would be helpful to kind of give you everyday something that everybody knows, Winnie the Pooh, everybody knows, and just kind of break those characters down. And we'll continue to do that on this channel, because one thing about me with talking and sharing and doing interventions and trying to help people, I try to relate to where I think you can understand. So if I'm doing a group, I need to reach the entire group. So I always try to use something that I think everybody in the room can relate to. If it's individual, then those interventions and those sessions are person-centered and there for you, and there are things that you can relate to. And that's what I want to do on this channel when it's real talk. Just be real about, what we're going through. Earlier on, we talked about, as I was getting into this, I made a reference to the Three Little Pigs. We'll go more into depth into that one. It's just a way to look at things. There's so many different ways to look at things. And we all look at things and think different because we are different people. And so what might come to mind for you in a scenario is not going to come to mind for me, but I love to hear it, and I love to try to see it from that way, because I'll miss something. And I love having conversations with people that are open to, yep, this is how I see it, but I also hear where you see it. And, hence the cliche, agree to disagree. Now, that's one that you won't hear me switch up or change up on, because that is one that is very true to me. You have to learn to agree to disagree, because if you want everybody to agree with everything that you say, man, get out of here. It ain't gonna happen. And if you want everybody to love you, like you, talk about what you have, and be all in, some people live for that and thrive off of that. You are going to be a very sad individual, because everybody ain't going to be there. If you think about the friends that you had 5 years ago versus the friends that you have now, think about the people that contact you now that didn't contact, or don't contact you now that you were in contact 5 years ago. And for me, on a personal note, I sit around now and think about how many people I hear from if I don't hit them first. man, blew my mind. My phone used to be off the chain because I made the first initiation to people. But now that I only reach out to those that reach out to me, my phone very seldom rings or very seldom goes off if it's not spam. And that's because I stopped being the one to see how you doing, and I sat back to see how many people was going to see how I was doing. And when it come to some people, I'm still sitting. And that's real talk. But I'm okay. You know, some of it bothered me, you know, some of it didn't. But I'm cool with it. The end was the end. And I need for them to be cool with it when and if they ever try to reach back out. There's nothing left. You left it where it was. And so, you know, we have to learn to leave it where it was. We have to learn to let them be. So in your let them be era, you have to be able to learn those things that you're willing to tolerate, carry, tote with you. We talked about putting things down. Remember, the load gets heavy. Don't walk around here with stuff that's not yours to carry. And that can help start, you know, emptying these things out of your mind, because some mental health disorders are self-induced. We end up making ourselves depressed, or we end up giving ourselves anxiety because we worry about stuff that we can't do nothing about to begin with. People change when they want to change. They change for who they want to change for. And we have to accept that. And, you know, it doesn't have to be any skin off your back. It doesn't have to take anything away from you if that's what's happening, you know? So, in wrapping up with Winnie the Pooh, and the kind of common mental health disorders, you know, like I said, throughout the channel and the life of this, I think, you know, I've come to a place and a point now where I really am going to stick with it regardless of what may come, because it's something that I want to do. And like I said early on, the goal is to help one person. And if the one person is me, hey, I'm cool and I'm good with that. But I know that my passion has always been to help. And, you know, I'm not going to let it stop just because I went through some things. I'll just do it different ways and do it, you know, the right way, so that it doesn't cause harm to the individual that trusted me enough to sit down and have a conversation about the uncharted waters that they're out there floating in, and they felt like they needed somebody, you know, to be in the boat. So with that, I want you guys to have an amazing day today. I hope everybody's doing good. I want to continue to thank you guys for coming on, watching, liking, subscribing, and accepting me with, you know, me and my realness. You know, real is rare. And we hear that saying all the time. But what it means for me, being real is breaking the chains of slavery. You know, if you can really be yourself, then you're no longer a slave to who people wanted you to be, or the box that some people try to put you in, or shoot, a place you put yourself in because you thought that's what people wanted. Because we can do that too. I know I've done that to myself. I've responded and reacted to what I thought somebody was thinking or saying about me. And until I had a conversation, I didn't know what the real was. And so, you know, real is rare. Be real, be rare, and stop being a slave to these jobs. Stop being a slave, you know, to your children. Some of you, you know, letting your kids rule your life. You got to teach them so they can, you know, they can be the adults that you want to raise them to be. Quit being a slave to your pastors, to your church. To please quit being a slave to that. You know, do what works for you. Believe what it is that you want to believe. You know, the other day, start playing that drum so you can find your drum beat, so you can march to the beat of your own drum. I'm sorry. Because if not, you'll start hearing some music. And, you know, if you're anything like me, if the beat sound good, you get ready to start heading this way. And now you marching to the beat of somebody else's drum. And when they stop playing and you don't hear it anymore, you don't even know which way to go. You don't even have nothing to listen for. So again, create your own beat, ride your own wave, do your own thing, be authentic, you know, customize your own way. Be you. You don't have to be anybody that you see on TV. You ain't got to be none of these people that, you see on YouTube. You be you. And the only way to know who you are, you got to sit down and get to know yourself again. So take that time, definitely do that. We're going to get into a lot of, like I said, it's self-preservation. If you don't learn to save yourself, you're going to find yourself out there on that boat in them uncharted waters. And we all know that cliche, up where creek without a paddle. You don't want to do that. And if you've done that and you've made it through, don't do it again. And that's just real talk, or at least try not to, do something different and, be cool how you can be cool. Just do what makes you, and you all are unique in your own way. I want you to know that and never ever lose that. There are things about you that nobody else can copy, nobody else can emulate, nobody else can do, because it's your unique gift. And don't shy away from it, because the naysayers, remember the amen corner, the haters, whatever y'all want to call them, the ops, whatever, always got something to say. Because now too, real talk, and I got to get off here because I want to say in a certain time limit, but one thing I want you guys to take away with you today too is to remember that sometimes you can be on the same team, wearing the same jersey, but everybody is not trying to reach the same goal. So just because we got on the same jersey, doesn't necessarily mean we on the same team all the time. And you got to learn to recognize that. I'm telling you. You got to learn to see that. You got to learn to ask those tough questions. You got to learn to accept the answers to those tough questions, because sometimes you ask those questions and you hear some stuff you don't want to hear. It's all right. Take it in, digest it, and then maneuver how you need to maneuver, and let that be the end of it. And I guarantee you, it'll be an easier way to go. It'll be a happier life. You ain't got to feel stuck. You ain't got to be all feeling some kind of way because somebody didn't do something the way that you thought they should do it. They ain't supposed to. You ain't create them. They're who they are. And so, remember all of those things. Always be, your authentic self. And so, again, another episode of Real Talk. I'm going to sign on and get up out of here. You guys, be great, be the best version of yourselves, and come back and join me tomorrow. All right.